Oh, yeah. What's up, fam? Welcome back to Actuali Podcast. I'm Chris. Our co-host DJ is unavailable this evening. The man is out of commission, so I'm going to be running it solo tonight. But I've got a treat for you guys this evening. We got something of a good news roundup. Actually, something quite historic. I've never seen anything like this. We're seeing populists from the left, right, independents, progressives, libertarians, conservatives, liberals, people of all different stripes coming together to counter the takeover by a completely corrupted establishment, wholly taken over by corporate interests to such a degree it's shocking that we're still able to eke out a electoral win, let alone a popular vote win. I've said before on this podcast, you might have heard it, that I see Donald Trump as something like the right's Bernie Sanders or even the right's JFK. He is certainly not accepted by the establishment, rhino Republicans, the corporatists that have infested both sides of our political party and major media, legacy news establishments. And, we've seen this great game of divide and conquer ongoing as of late. It's been quite depressing to watch and see whole families and, friendships and relationships get torn apart over a manufactured political divide. And we've spent a lot of time on this podcast illustrating how that divide is indeed manufactured. In fact, in our last episode, we covered the subject of truth management and the manufacturing of consent, which are methodologies that governments employ to psychologically manipulate the public. And this is what governments actually end up resorting to when the people are no longer being well-educated, critical thinkers with a sense of virtue. That's, in fact, what our forefathers expressed that we need to have a healthy democratic republic, and to survive it, you need highly educated, virtuous, critical thinkers. So, sad state of affairs, but life goes on. We still figure things out together, and you can see that course correction happening now. And it's a beautiful thing to see. Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uyger of the Young Turks are among the most recent major figures to come out, not in support of Donald Trump necessarily, but in support of the populists that are trying to clear out the rot in our government. And so here we are, finding ourselves as strange bedfellows in a very beautiful healing alliance. And it's an exciting time. It's feeling very American. The United States of America is what we want to have, not the divided states. And certainly we have been played with this game of divide and conquer as of late. So let me go ahead and get this first clip up and ready, guys. This is such a cool moment in the interview between Glenn Beck and Anna Kasparian, where Glenn admits where he was wrong in the past. And Anna is just shocked by this, but he's offering an olive leaf here. And just check this out, guys. Let's go.
Country that says we don't torture, but we'll ghost plane you to some place that will torture. You're a monster.
100%.
You're a monster.
100%. I can't believe I'm hearing you say this stuff. It's
I've said
crazy.
this for years. I've said
insane.
it for years. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
But you have to be consistent with your principles. And I think there's a lot of conservatives, and I'm so happy to see that now there are some Democrats that are doing the same thing. Like, I was for big food. I was for big pharma. And then I saw it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like saying to Democrats, guys, you were right. Now, why have you abandoned that position? Because we would agree. We could get so much done.
Great point, right? Isn't that curious? We have been pitted against each other so effectively that we are in our own bubbles and we're not seeing where we actually have these incredible, powerful points of agreement with those across the aisle. And so, Glenn offers an olive leaf there, and Anna now returns that respect, and talks about what her values are rooted in, and how the Democrats have become progressively more corporate owned. And they've also turned to maximizing culture war issues to try and win over the public, but it comes off as so disingenuous ultimately once the brainwashing scheme has run over enough times that we're starting to see through it. You know, the cracks are starting to show. They keep repeating the same old jargon, the same old rhetoric, and we start to question it because there's something fishy going on here. Why do they keep saying this? Why are all these major corporations and the government supporting this movement that I've suddenly caught on to? So let's switch on back. Check this out now, guys. So, well, actually, let me zoom back a little bit here. And right around, yeah. Here we go.
The Republican Party, traditionally speaking, and historically, unionized labor was something that the Democratic Party looked out for. And I don't really see that as the case anymore when it comes to the mainstream Democrats. They're certainly more corporate now.
Yeah.
They're certainly captured by their corporate donors. I think that the way that this last election went down really does show you the kind of political strategist rot that exists, the corruption that exists, and there's real tension now between the voters who want very specific policy prescriptions in order to deal with the rising inequalities that we have in this country when it comes to wealth and income.
Sure.
And then you have the Democratic Party, which is heavily funded by corporate interests and moneyed interests. And what those donors want severely conflicts with what the base of Democratic voters want.
Boy, does it.
And so this has been a growing issue with the Democratic Party. And what I see as, you know, their campaign call is more and more culture war stuff. And it gets more and more extreme every election cycle. And I think that they're pushing more and more people away by sticking to the corporate politics while also getting more and more maximalist when it comes to some of the culture war type issues.
Yep. Have you guys seen this too? They stopped looking out for the lower classes. They started just kind of jumping on to these different cultural bandwagons, these different, you know, small movements they saw that they thought were bigger than they were because people can be really loud on places like Twitter and social media. And they can also be very effective at threatening and scaring people into supporting their views. And that's actually a lot of what's been happening. A lot of gaslighting, a lot of threatening, a lot of cancel culture has been kind of forcing people to play along who, in their better judgment, if they were really stopping to pause for a minute and not thinking from a fearful perspective, they would not actually readily support. So now we're going to see Glenn speak on machine and left-wing Marxism as he sees it. So let's check this out, guys.
The way I look at the Democratic Party or the left is that there is the machine that is in bed now with big business. And that's just the crony capitalism, just the vomitous kind of corruption that we all hate in either party, any party.
Right.
The rot.
Then there's the average Democrat who might disagree on taxes or whatever, but they believe in the Constitution and they believe in the Bill of Rights and everything else. And I think that has been that is the majority of people.
Absolutely.
And then there's this crazy left-wing Marxist, you know, destroy it all kind of group. And that,
Yeah, you guys have seen some of this stuff out there, I'm sure.
I don't even know, maybe 8%, 10%
Very
is that.
nihilistic.
And it's the middle people who have been either lied to so effectively by so many people, mainly mainstream media.
Really?
But we're at the beginning in the Democratic Party, possibly, of those people waking up and going, I don't like either end
Right.
of this spectrum.
Yep. That's what's been happening to a lot of Americans, I think, and in recent years. And that is why Donald Trump handily won this election, because people are tired of the rot, tired of the corruption by corporate interests who have no interest in upholding the values of our Constitution and Bill of Rights. So, Glenn Beck and Anna, continue. This tendency to assume the worst of one another is a serious problem. And, I'm sure you guys have seen as much as I have on your social media feeds or even in talking with people and your family and friends. So much of that assuming the worst and this mischaracterizing, building really caricatures of one another that do not account for the depth of any individual. Like whole groups of people are now considered racist or this or that for, initially, for instance, when the pandemic began, it was if you believed that the virus may have actually been born in a lab rather than a wet market. That was a really controversial thing to say, and you would be called far right, you'd be called extremist, crazy conspiracy theorist, kook. That was actually the more likely scenario because there was a lab that was dedicated to studying those types of viruses right there in the city that the virus originated in, of course. The more racist or at least racial and kind of perhaps inappropriate thing to say would actually be to say, oh, those Chinese people and their wet markets, God knows what they're eating. And that's probably how the disease started. But anyways, the newspaper still said that if you thought it might come from a lab, you were far right, you were probably racist, this and that. And that kind of stuff is just insane, really. But we were all in a state of fear and we were just being inundated with this message. So, people naturally did fall for it, even very intelligent people, because we are so easily emotionally manipulated, especially when we're in a state of trauma or fear for a prolonged amount of time. So yeah, let's go on and check out this next clip, guys. Here we go.
The core of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like what you would expect from religious zealots. And so there's a fundamentalism involved in the way that they treat these issues, and there's no room to negotiate. There's no room to maybe consider the thoughts and concerns of other individuals. And so as they become more and more kind of like authoritarian in what they demand, they are pushing people away. And there are some issues in which the rights of one group might actually end up conflicting with the rights of another group, depending on what type of legislation you're pursuing. And so, of course, this has come up with the trans issue. And I've always been supportive of the transgender community, but when the rights of transgender people, particularly transgender women, start to cause some tension with the rights and freedoms of women or the perceived safety of women, well, let's have a conversation and avoid assuming the worst of the people who want to have that conversation, right?
Agreed. I could not have said it better myself. And so here we are. What a strange thing, to see. We're actually not so different after all. Sure, we're going to disagree on how to handle certain issues, but we're going to be able to find major points of agreement. We should not be assuming the worst of one another. We're falling into some crazy traps when we do that. It's a divide and conquer game, and we need not fall victim to it. So Anna goes on to admit her own bias here at this point, and so we're zooming ahead just a little bit. This is a powerful moment. Check this out.
Over the other. And unfortunately, and I understand this because I think I was also kind of in that bubble of seeking content or information that only validated what I already believed because it's comfortable. And I totally understand why people do that. I used to do that myself. I didn't do it consciously. It was like a thing that I think I was just doing because it's like, I trust this source because this source is reporting accurately. But it turns out, no, I actually trust that source because that source is telling me what I want to hear.
Correct.
And so this is a huge problem because the divisions in the country and the inability,
Excuse me.
because the divisions in the country and the inability to have conversations with people you disagree with, I think is a product of the bubbles that we live in, right? The media bubbles we live in.
Yes, yes, yes. We were just speaking on this. We're all like in our own reality tunnels, our own bubbles, really. And there is media that is tailor made for certain groups of people. And very much, I think that this is proof of the divide and conquer game that we are in the midst of. There are corporate entities that are so powerful when they team up into groups like the WEF, World Economic Forum, that they can influence whole nations, how they govern themselves, who is in the positions of power. And that's a very tough nut to crack. In fact, the whole world has been watching the US to see if we're going to be able to save ourselves. Because if we cannot save ourselves, then the whole world is going to get swallowed up by this corporate, global, totalitarian, um, corporate behemoth. It's a strange machine, and it's going to be unlike anything we've seen before. But whole, or corporations are now challenging whole governments to trials of strength, and they have been winning the game in most countries. In fact, they've been winning here for a long time, and they've almost completely taken over. But thank God there's so many checks and balances in place here in the United States that we have been able to somehow. Here we are. Hello. We have somehow been able to resist this thus far. We've been hanging on by a string, just by a thread, really, but we have kept enough of those checks and balances in place to be able to get a populist back in office. Whether you like old Donald Trump or not, he certainly is a populist that the right wing of our corporate government certainly did not want. Empower the rhinos, the old neocon Republicans did not want this guy. They tried so hard to keep him out, especially the first time he was running, and they just could not stop him. They tried again the second time, along with the neo libs, the corporate wing of the Democratic Party, and they also could not stop this political movement because so many people, left, right, and center, came over to vote. And we were voting against the establishment. So here's Anna now, and Glenn speaking on this new coalition. Anna speaks on populism now, because her and Cenk certainly were populists, just of the left. And the populists left and right are finding that we have so much in agreement and that we can actually work together and change things now for the better. Guys, this is good news. So check this out. We jumping over. Let's go.
Cool. There's this new coalition of Trump, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK, Elon Musk, people that are coming from all different points of view. It's the way America that I grew up in. It's the way America was. We disagree on a lot, but we have one central vision, and that is, in this case, end this corruption, end this nonsense.
Yes, yes.
Right?
Yeah, no, that's a great way of putting it. And, the CEO and my co-host, Cenk Uyger of the Young Turks, he is really trying to bring like a populist coalition of people together, and individuals, basically Americans who see the rot in our political system thanks to the corruption. And so it's been his top issue ever since I've met him. And so he's been trying to get money out of politics. So these politicians actually represent what the people want.
Yeah. Yeah. This is what we need. We got to bring it back, guys. And, you may disagree with Cenk and Ann on a lot of issues. I disagree with them on a lot of issues, but I'm really excited to see this. This is a big deal. And what a profound coalition this populist movement has gathered together. RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, and Elon Musk, all former Trump, a former Democrat, lifelong. Just an amazing coalition. And now even Bernie Sanders has said that that Elon was right. And he looks forward to what Doge does. So this is quite a thing, quite a time. So let's move on now and see. Yes, I've got one more little clip that. Let me bring this up here, guys. Check this. From Anna on Pierce Morgan. So Anna and Cenk have been making the rounds and going on to all different podcasts and shows, people that you would never have expected to see them talk to, such as Glenn Beck. Now here she is talking with Pierce Morgan and actually agreeing on things. So this is, once again, very hopeful sign. Check this out. It's a good news roundup.
I think that this is a small but incredibly loud and influential faction of the Democratic Party. This is not indicative of all Democrats. This is not indicative of all Democratic lawmakers. This is a small group of activists who like to bully, who like to go to city council meetings, who like to go to various rallies and essentially be loud, be threatening, be aggressive until they get their way. And for far too long, the Democratic Party has been terrified of these little mobs of people, these little mobs of activists, and have basically just carried out what these activists want. And I just think that they need to be a little smarter than falling prey to the whims of various activist groups, because they are not representative of the majority of Americans. The majority of Americans, especially in a state like California, want homeless people to be housed, but they also understand that this issue is far more complicated than the housing first policy of throwing anyone who doesn't have a home into an apartment, right? Because the fact of the matter is we have severe mental health issues out on our streets right now, people who are struggling with severe drug addiction. Some of these people actually do have families to go to or homes to go to. They need a different type of service. They need rehabilitation, not harm reduction, where we're just passing out needles and crack pipes thinking that it's going to solve the problem. It has not solved the problem. It has made the lives of these individuals struggling on the streets far worse, and it has also made the lives of hardworking, tax-paying Americans in states like California.
So she goes on there, but man, this is part of what woke Anna up. She was attacked on the streets in California, and she sees the mental illness epidemic. She sees how these Democratic-run cities like LA and San Francisco are just falling apart, and it's finally brought her to come back home and start wanting to talk with people that are across the aisle or see the world a little bit differently from her, to figure out how can we solve this problem together, because it's going to take all of us. As was once said, the United States is like a bird, and it needs two wings. A bird needs two wings to fly. The left and the right work together in kind of like an opponent process, and where we calibrate, we focus out, we focus in, we, through compromise and conciliation, narrow down to the best solutions we can find for one and all. And they may be imperfect, but you know how the best kind of deal is where both parties feel like they lost a little bit, but they also won a little bit. So that's what we're looking for here, isn't it? So let's go ahead now and learn about Mr. Cenk Uyger and how he came to be in the situation where he finds himself as well admitting, I was wrong. So let's go ahead and get on over to, I'm trying to get my notes are all out of order, guys. This is crazy. Here we go. Boom shakalaka. Let's go rock and roll.
So let's get right into it. Cenk, are you now a Republican?
Okay, so a lot of people on the left have that theory. The definitive answer is no. So look, I've been a populist all along, and what's fascinating to me is how much politics in America has changed. Because the left-wing populists, like the Bernie Sanders type of guys, have been standing a post waiting for our right flank to appear at some point. Because giant things like getting money out of politics, you cannot do alone. The left wing can't do it alone. The right wing can't do it alone. Nope. If you want, the only way to fix it is an amendment, because you got to go above the Supreme Court. You need 3/4 of the states. So for me, I've always thought, if we don't get united, we're never going to beat the establishment. And the establishment has been my enemy for.
Yeah, and so that's it. If we don't get united, we are never going to beat the establishment. He's right. He's right. And this is good to see. So, he kind of goes on here just another minute or two later and says the following.
their father's Republicans, but you're not their father's Republicans. And so our side, I've been trying to get them to realize that Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, all these folks that take the money, they're not on your side. They're on the establishment side, right?
Yes.
And for you guys on the right, when I used to debate you, and I don't mean you guys in specific, I mean in general, all I would get is wall-to-wall talking points. Oh, Mitch McConnell knows what he's doing. Oh, John Cornyn is the best. Oh, George Bush, Dick Cheney, et cetera. And we've been around forever. We're the longest running show in internet history, right? We're the first YouTube partner channel ever. That makes me like the original YouTuber, right? Oh, wow. And so I battled the Cheneys. I battled all those guys in the Bush years, right? And then I hit Obama from the left, and people got super mad. I mean, that's part of the reason why I had the huge blowout with MSNBC, and I left MSNBC because they didn't want me to hit Obama, and they didn't want me to hit the Democrats. So I've been doing that from day one. And guys, today, I think that, we could do something historic. I think that we could actually unite the left flank and the right flank.
I like that. Unite the left and the right flank. We really do need to be able to call out our own side. So if you see yourself as leaning left or leaning right, whichever way you lean, be willing to question your own assumptions, your group's commonly held beliefs and maxims. Be willing to question everything. We worry so much about seeming right or being right, personally, instead of, just trying to figure out together what is good for one and all. Don't you want to know what the truth is? Who cares about being right? It's okay to be wrong. We all make mistakes. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. That's a part of practice and perfection and skill acquisition. And, we also figure things out a lot better when we put our minds together than when we are trying to do it alone. So we got to really be able to put our egos aside and see one another as human beings once again before these group label, low resolution labels we throw on top of one another. But, that game of divide and conquer is real, and it's a multi-billion-dollar funded, super sophisticated psychological operation. And, truth management and the manufacturing consent are real techniques that governments and corporations and media utilize to manipulate the masses, as we went over in our last episode. So this is what we're up against, but thank God the media is ours now. Yeah, Ninja Bat, I agree 100%. More podcasters and less mainstream media. Tim Pool and Cenk was very interesting. I saw most of that episode, and we're actually going to cover a couple of clips from that as well. I like that. I don't lean. I stand up straight. That's what we all got to do. Stand up together, guys. Help each other up, and let's prop each other up, and let's keep each other standing together, because we can change this world. We just got to open our hearts, open our minds, and change our orientation to reality from one of I'm right and you're wrong to let's try and figure this out together, because you might have a point there I'm not understanding yet. Explain that to me again. Let me try and steel man that. Now, can you see where I'm coming from? And we go through that process of compromise and conciliation and understanding. This is the way forward, guys. This is the only way. And we have to at this point, because our technological capacity is so great now that we have created weapons that we can easily destroy ourselves and, our species and this world. And, it's like Daniel Schmachtenberger said, that we have the power of gods, but we have not the wisdom of gods. And we really need to cultivate that wisdom. So how else can we do that but by humbling ourselves, opening our hearts, and trying to figure this thing out together in cooperation, right? So rant off. Let's go ahead and zoom a little bit forward now in this episode. The links to all of these videos are in the description, guys. So make sure that you get out there. And if you like what you're seeing, give these guys some likes and subscribes. And if you appreciate what we're doing here on Actuali, we do this Meaning Making 101 live stream every Wednesday at 7 or 8 p.m. EST, as we are available. And we try and figure this out together. We're not sitting here trying to tell you guys what to believe. We're no better than anyone else out there. We're all learning together here. That's actually what we are involved in. We're not experts. If anything, hopefully we're at least doing a good job of paying attention to what is happening on the cutting edge of this world change. So, yeah, right-wing populists. If we were unified, the right and the left-wing populists, they could not stop us. Check it out.
But there is a significant portion of the MAGA base now that is, in my opinion, right-wing populists who are actually anti-establishment, actually anti-corruption, actually anti-war. And what I'm trying to tell the left is take the win. Take the win. We've been standing opposed here for 20 years, trying to cut the Pentagon, trying to be anti-war, being getting money out of politics. If people say yes, for God's sake, that's our lost tribe. Those are our right-wing brothers and sisters who are Americans, who are populists, who agree with us. Let's go fight the establishment together, because if we're united, they cannot stop us.
The people united can never be defeated. The people divided can always be defeated. Man, I really like the way he put that. Isn't this exciting, guys? Isn't this a beautiful thing to see? So yeah, Cenk Uyger coming around. What do you know? Who would have thunk? But, you know, we're going to take it. I'm with it, 100%. So a little bit more on this episode of PBD with Cenk Uyger. What is the real problem with the Democratic Party now as Cenk Uyger sees it? Let's see what he has to say on this.
With the left and the Democratic Party these days culturally is we don't want you, we don't want you, we don't want you. If there's a 2% disagreement, we want to cancel you and get you the hell out of here. Right wing, in my opinion, has their own version of cancel culture. We can get into that.
Sure.
But with the right wing, you agree with them 2%, they're like, oh, welcome in, come to the party. Oh, yeah, come on in, come on in. And if one party's constantly pushing people out and the other party's constantly inviting them in, well, at some point, the party inviting them in has the bigger tent, and you not only win the election, you win the popular vote. So Democrats have to get out of this mindset of, you must agree with Democratic leadership, and if you don't, you're ruining unity. Shut up and get back in line. No, hell no.
Yeah, and they will come after you hard if you don't agree, as we saw with Tulsi Gabbard ultimately having to leave the party. The same thing with RFK. The lawfare that was employed against Trump was also employed against RFK. They are continually pushing people out of their party. And it's, you know, I guess it's what it is, but it's a sad thing to see. So zooming ahead again a little bit more, you know, we're just kind of picking out the high points of these, but I encourage you guys, you know, if you're curious to hear more of these conversations, go on over, check the links in the description. You can see every single video that was used for this episode. Jumping back, let's go.
This absurdity of CNN and New York Times pretending that the donor money doesn't affect the candidates and it doesn't affect the bills. When they start talking about legislation and we're talking about, hey, can we negotiate drug prices? And you're not talking about big pharma spending billions, if not trillions of dollars in lobbying and donating to the politicians, et cetera. No, it's utter corruption. And we cannot beat that corruption unless we unite. So if the right wing, if I'm right about the right wing populists, and I made a bet with one of my co-hosts last night, okay, well, I can tell you about that too. But if I'm right about the right wing populists and we unite on some things that we agree on, I think we're going to be invincible and finally beat the establishment.
Absolutely. Amen, brother. I'm really, you know, moved to see this openness from Cenk, which, you know, with whom I often disagree. But, you know, I appreciate where even people with who I disagree come from. You know, we got to understand each other. We all have different value orientations. Once we understand the values that these beliefs and these opinions come from, we can much more easily relate and understand those with whom we're having disagreements. So, new game, fam. So we have made it all the way through Anna and Glenn Beck. We have covered Cenk on the PBD podcast. Let's go ahead and let's see what we got up next here. I know it's yeah, we got that. Oh yeah, here we go. on Benny Johnson's channel. Bada boom. Dipping on back. Here we are. Let's roll.
First off, ladies and gentlemen, let's dive right in and talk about the news, all right? Talk about how this all happened. So, Cenk from the Young Turks straight up asking for a job in the Trump administration, all right? Now, Cenk from the Young Turks is a big-time Bernie Sanders supporter and very close with Bernie Sanders. They've done a million interviews together. No doubt Bernie saw this. Hey, Elon Musk put me in charge of the Pentagon. I'll slash $400 billion easy. That'll get you 20% of your goal to $2 trillion right out the gate. I went to Wharton 3 years before you did. I own a media company and I know how to run a business. If you really want to cut, put me in, coach. Suggestions welcome, says Elon Musk. It's amazing. X is so amazing right now. As you know, you'll need the line items in the budget. Here's one. If the generals are not allowed to get a job with the defense contractors for 10 years, they authorize so much wasteful spending because they're going to get hired by the same companies. It's great. It's actually a great suggestion. Really Elon Musk responded and saying, this is amazing. Scott Pressler, I love the coalition Trump is building. The Republican Party is willing to listen. Yeah. MAGA isn't a political ideology. It's American values. This isn't about Republicans anymore. This is about pro-America versus pro-machine and pro-corruption.
Yeah. The Republican Party is being changed from the inside out. And this is a good thing. You know, this is good news, guys. It's not as crazy. It's not as bad. It's not as world ending. It's not some, guy that wants to be a dictator. It's not what the mainstream media has made it out to be. This is actually really good news. This is a profoundly beautiful coalition that is coming together. Populists, left, right, and center are coming together to save this system of self-governance from the corporate rot that has corrupted it. So, yeah, friggin' awesome to see, That's great news. So, Benny now continues on. Let's go jump on back and let Benny continue.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bernie Sanders is now reading the tea leaves and broke the internet with a post that's about 2 hours old right now and is nuking. Look at this.
So yeah, this was just beginning of this month, December 1st. Bernie Sanders, did you guys hear about this? Bernie Sanders said Elon Musk is right.
Bernie Sanders' post says Elon Musk is right. What an unbelievable thing that we were seeing. Just this line alone.
Really?
Elon Musk shatters the corporate Democrat media ecosystem. Elon Musk is a threat to democracy. Elon Musk is Satan. Elon Musk is the devil. Elon Musk is a Russian asset. No, Elon Musk is right, says Bernie Sanders, arguably like the only populist, right, on the left on the left. The Pentagon, with a budget of $800 billion, just failed its 7th audit in a row. It's lost track of billions. Last year, only 13 senators voted against the military-industrial complex as a defense budget full of waste and fraud. This much must change. Look at the comments Bernie's receiving. 2.4 million views to this.
Wow.
2,000 comments, 5,000 reposts, and 34,000 likes. Again, this has only been up for a few hours.
And so we're reporting on Benny's reporting of this. This tweet has gone much higher by now, but that's just such a beautiful thing to see. I mean, yeah, budget of $886 million. The Pentagon, with a budget of $886 billion, just failed its 7th audit in a row. Its 7th audit in a row. We'd be in jail. It's lost track of billions. I remember September 10th, 2001, the day before 9/11, that Donald Rumsfeld was on national television telling the American people that, I believe it was the IRS, had lost $2 trillion of the taxpayers' money, just vanished into thin air. And I believe the records were actually kept in World Trade Center 7, if I'm correct. I might be wrong on that. Check me out on that, guys. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I do believe that that building that was not hit that day by a plane, that somehow mysteriously fell into its own footprint as well, as though it were a controlled demolition, actually housed the records that would have allowed us to track what happened to that $2 trillion. Oh my goodness. So yeah, just a little clip from Benny there. he does good work out there. You don't have to disagree with everything everyone says. You're just looking for good faith actors on all sides, guys. If you want to be truly well informed, look for the good faith actors on the left, on the right, on the center, the independent sources, and then track how mainstream media is reporting the news as well. You're going to gain a much more clear view of reality. You're not going to be able to lie to you so easily anymore. You're even going to be able to see when both sides have points and they're speaking simultaneously about truths that actually kind of interfere with one another. And so that's where our process of conciliation really needs to kick in. We got to figure out how to opponent process together to calibrate and narrow into a way that we can at least both sides put up with and agree on well enough to function under. But we're constantly continuing this calibration process, aren't we? How else are we going to make it without continual re-correction as we go along through this world? So now, Cenk Uyger appeared on Timcast. He's been on the show before, but Cenk and Anna are making the rounds right now for a very interesting reason. And that's, of course, what we've been covering this whole episode. But here he is saying it for himself. So let's go ahead and jump on over. Check it out.
Right? So that's why we started getting a crazy skewed view of all of us, of each other, right? So part of what Anna and I are doing now is we're trying to break down those walls, right? And so
you're here.
That's why I'm here. That's why I was here last time. That's why I'm going on Patrick Bet David again. That's why I'm going on Drinking Bros and
so on and so forth. All right, so zipping ahead just a little bit. Check this.
The reason why we were making fun of each other and insulting each other and doing all this stuff is because we were so separated. We stopped thinking of each other as fellow citizens, fellow Americans. And so for the left, I'm trying to break that down. And guys, let's hear them out. Are they actually anti-war? Before you make up your mind, are they actually anti-corruption? Blah, 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 blah. I got you, brother. But let's take, okay, look, the labor secretary. There's no reason not to like the labor secretary. The Teamsters helped to pick the labor secretary. Yeah. So take the goddamn win. Take the win, right? So if they really want to cut the Pentagon, great. Are you kidding me? We've been dying to cut the Pentagon. Are you now going to say that you don't want to cut the Pentagon to spite Trump? That's crazy, right?
That's crazy.
So we're trying to break down the walls and have these conversations.
To that point,
that's it, man. Dig it. Dig it. So it's happening. This is why Cenk has been on trigonometry and modern wisdom. And, Anna has been on Glenn Beck's show now. They're making the rounds and they're talking with those with whom they have previously fiercely disagreed. And realizing, oh my God, we have points of commonality. We have points of agreement that are really profound and important at this point in history. If we want to save the soul of our nation, let's put our differences aside. Let's work together. Love to see it. So, zipping ahead just a little bit here. Let's go on. Boom, shaka, raka, kaboom. Boom.
You being here, it's a major win.
Absolutely.
I respect and appreciate your response on things. I'm sure I've got videos as well. Everybody does. I don't think I'm a saint, but when we can have these conversations, we can pull up stories, we can discuss them, we can disagree on what they mean, like the Trump Constitution thing. You say, oh, you're crazy, you're wrong, but we're here, and that's right. That's massive, and I think that's going to. I'm really optimistic moving forward. I'm glad you are too.
Yeah. I just saw your comment there, Ninja Bat. Black projects equals missing funds. So you're talking about the money that just magically went missing that Donald Trump announced on September 10th, 2001, the day before 9/11. We're all suddenly distracted from that $2 trillion of taxpayer funds that went missing. I've thought the same thing. I think you're right. I think that money went to black projects. That's exactly what happened. What else happens to it, So... yeah, crazy times. But let's go on here and continue because so many great moments in this episode of Timcast. Moving on, let's roll.
I was guilty of it, no question. I remember writing after 2020. I'm like, I don't want to know any Trump voters. I don't want to associate with Trump voters. I got no interest in it. Okay, and so. But what I've seen is that, first of all, the Trump base changed. I'm the only one on the left saying that. and I'm so curious to see if I'm right or wrong, because your only time is going to tell. You know, when Trump does something the base doesn't like, is he tested, et cetera, right? But more importantly, when I started seeing exactly to your point about the Civil War, I not only would
Yeah. Okay, so he says that initially he didn't want to know any Trump voters, and then
like, what do you wait. No, I hate this, because we're supposed to be America. It's United States of America, right? And so with that division was good. Now it's gotten to like a cancerous state where Joy Reid is saying, don't talk to family at Thanksgiving, right?
That's crazy.
And that's crazy.
That's crazy.
So some of my family members, some of my best friends are right wing, right? And we do what we kind of are doing on this show. I go, you're crazy. He goes, you're crazy. And then we go have a beer, right?
That's really good that you can do that. I mean, it was like a few days after the election before my mom would return my text.
Yeah. No, we
Sorry to
can't.
hear that.
I know.
Yeah, we can't do that, man. We've got to talk to each other. Otherwise, we might not know when we agree.
really, ain't that the truth, guys? How y'all feel about this? Good news? I think this is great news. This is a really, really hopeful sign. Yep. So, just a couple more things here, guys, before we close it out for this evening. Cenk Uyger was on the Rising podcast as well. And I'm trying to find those notes. Here we are. And he's, of course, making the rounds here, continuing to make these great points. Shocking to see, but, you know, kudos, brother.
They told us that on Hillary Clinton, she lost. And they said it's an aberration. It's an aberration. Oh, he got lucky, whatever, right? The Russians, etc. Then when Kamala Harris lost, they said the same things. They blamed the voters. Oh, it was Latino men and how sexist they are. And it was black men, and it was the progressives. Right? They always blame the voters, right?
Yeah, you guys remember that?
And now the veil has been lifted, and the American people can see. The Democratic establishment is full of crap. They don't know anything. I'll go way further. This is like stuff you can't say on television. Okay.
We're on YouTube, so go ahead.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's different things you can't say.
Right. Democratic leadership are morons.
Yeah.
That's why they lost. Yeah. So they can't adjust to the times. They can't see that we're in a populist mood in America.
Yeah, they can't see it. They can't see it. Jumping ahead to our next clip here. We're not going to end up watching very much of this one, but this was another great point here. So let's go ahead.
Down in a couple getters. First,
This is where Cenk actually explains his tweet to Elon Musk. So this is quite telling. And I apologize for the volume on this video, guys. I have it maxed out. It's just quieter for whatever reason.
First of all, on the things that we agree on. So I wrote a tweet to Elon Musk basically saying, hey, if you want to cut $2 trillion out of the government, I can help you by cutting 20% of it overnight, $400 billion from the Pentagon. Put me in charge, put me in coach, and I'll cut the Pentagon. Yeah. So look, I didn't expect much from that tweet, but what happened next was super interesting. Number one, tons of right-wing populists said, hell yeah, let's go cut the Pentagon. Now pause there for a second. This is not your father's Republican Party.
Nope.
When I know because I've been around long enough to have fought your father's Republican Party, and those guys were unmovable. They were the establishment Republicans, just like the establishment Democrats are unmovable. And they were like, no, the Pentagon must always be doubled. We must always attack and create more wars, right? So now you've got a guy saying,
Military-industrial complex.
then Elon Musk, okay, so the voters say, yeah, Cenk, this is Republicans saying let's cut the Pentagon. Then Elon Musk jumps in and goes, you got any suggestions? Now, I run the largest left-wing network, not just online, but probably anywhere.
You do?
Right? No Democratic leader has ever asked me, hey, Cenk, you got any suggestions? Because they're not open to it. Because all they say is, okay, what do my donors want? I'm going to do what they want. The rest is just fraud, right?
Because they're controlled by corporate interests. That is why. And I'm glad that he had the courage to say that, to speak the truth. So I think that's about it for the evening, guys. Yeah, the volume was low in that video, Apologies for that, Ninja Bet. I had it maxed out, but for whatever reason, the volume is lower on that one. So you have to boost your volumes for that last bit there with Cenk on the hill. Yeah, optimistic but skeptical. I agree, Ninja Bat. It's wise to remain skeptical, but cautious optimism is also a good thing. I don't think that our brains can even map out the potential solutions without that hopefulness in heart. You got to have a sense of hopefulness and optimism for your brain to be able to basically realize, oh, we're looking for pathways. We're going to work on this thing because it might be possible. And then since there is some potentiality there, it starts to play out all of these different directions and ideas that one could try to solve the problem. But if we're just being defeatist and hopelessly cynical or nihilistic, of course, our brain's not going to be mapping out towards any possible solution scenarios at all. It's just going to be figuring out how to increase the suffering of the world around it, so that they understand how, it feels, as well, or something like that. How that kind of thing plays out, sadly. But yeah, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Actuali podcast here on our special Meaning Making 101 weekly live stream series. If you enjoyed this episode, please do return next Wednesday. Typically, we're on 7 p.m. EST, and we're also we're live on Facebook, on Twitch, on YouTube, and on X right now. But we're also on the podcast network. So if you like to listen to podcasts, of course, like us and subscribe us to us on Spotify or Apple or Google or Stitcher or wherever you like to listen to podcasts as well. And make sure you smash that like and subscribe button right here on YouTube. Throw down those comments, guys, on these videos. It helps the algorithm more than anything else. And I would love to be able to reach more people. We're just out here letting you guys know you're not alone, and we can build this thing. We can work and learn and grow together. We can change this world from the inside out. That is the most effective way to be able to create and sustain long-term revolutions, positive revolutions in our world. We could have a revolution tomorrow morning and overthrow this or that government. But if we ourselves are not virtuous enough to uphold those values, that system's just going to become corrupt all over again. And then it's going to have safeguards against being able to be taken over again that are even more powerful and effective because it's learned, how to fight against us. So we have to change ourselves. We got to be that change we wish to see in this world. And I know that is a cliche, and it might seem like it might just seem like some kind of meaningless cliche, but it's actually one of the deepest truths I think I've ever come across. We can change this world, but if we wish for it to be a true and lasting change, we got to change ourselves to live up to that world, to be able to even create that world we wish to see. And we're never going to have utopia, but we can always get better. And that's one of the beautiful things about being an earthling in this great mystery, this universe, this cosmos, is that there is no cap on our potential growth. And there is no cap to our potential enlightenment and self-realization. So let's do this thing, guys. Let's forgive those with whom we have had disagreements. Let's try and understand from their perspectives. Let's be willing to put ourselves in other people's shoes, see from their points of views, because then we are effectively widening our own awareness. And you're going to be able to understand things that you previously were confused or befuddled or angered by. You're going to, through heartful, compassionate insight, understand where people are coming from, even when you disagree with them. And we're going to be able to then work together far more effectively. Let's not play into this game of divide and conquer anymore. Guys, love you so much. Thank you for being here with us. I've been Chris. This is Actuali Podcast. Meaning Making 101 is out. Yo, let's dance this thing on out, guys. We out. Mm. Oh, yeah.